Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose, as long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we are going to be talking about all sorts of crazy Bearsness. We've got Blackhawks, we've got Bulls, we've got all sorts of Chicago sports we got to dive into today. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford IceHogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford IceHogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. The season is here. I will repeat, it's not a drill. The season is here. So make sure you head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, I do not know where to begin because there's all kinds of stuff going on.
Well, listen, I think the term unbelievable can sum up the past few days in a good way this time. We're used to saying unbelievable, like, wow, our team really did that. Really? We lost again. We lost in that fashion. But no, we had one of the funnest experiences as a Bears fan the other night. As fun as it gets. We haven't had that much fun in a while. I mean, there's a difference between squeaking out an upset win, which would have felt great. I mean, going into New England in Foxborough against Bill Belichick, who had the record that George Halas has in his grasp, a win in any fashion would have felt awesome. But they went in, the Bears did, and smoked them in their own building. They outclassed them in every aspect of the game. That was an ass whooping that I expected to be switched around. And I think the whole football world did too. I still can't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, if you just put the math on the paper, it's a primetime game, which the Bears have not fared well in over the last lifetime. And you have Bill Belichick facing a rookie head coach and Bill Belichick's defense going against a beat up Bears offensive line with no wide receivers and a young quarterback. Bill Belichick has, for the most part in his career, just eaten young quarterbacks alive.
Mm-hmm.
And you had, if Bill Belichick wins this game, he moves past George Halas into sole second place in the all-time wins chart for NFL coaches. So all of those things are working against the Bears. And the Bears, for the most part, dominated that game from start to finish.
Yeah, and they won in all phases. They won on offense. They won on defense.
Yeah, and you know, I at one point, when Bailey Zappi came in, and I got a little nervous. I was like, all right, I shouldn't be nervous. It's a little irrational. The guy has played well, but he's also played against some of the worst defenses in the league in those games, those couple games that he's gone in. So it's not really a fair representation. And then right away, he scores 2 touchdowns. I was like, uh-oh. But going back and rewatching, one was an absolutely, why did you throw that? Because it should have been broken up or intercepted. It was an absolutely amazing catch.
Yeah.
And the other one was a broken play.
Yeah, and that wasn't even a great throw, but he was so wide open that he was able to just catch it easily and then go down right in front of the goal line. I mean, honestly, I thought when that was happening, I'm like, up, fun's over. That was fun while it lasted, but nope, it's over. But then the Bears did not falter. They had everything again getting switched on them. They started off good, and then things got a little when Mac Jones came out after that first Brisker interception. And then here's Zappy. And the thing is, he comes in and they're starting to score, and that crowd is loud. They are back into it. But the Bears didn't let those moments get to them. They were able to regroup and then score a touchdown. A nice 4-minute, 10-second drive, 11 plays. And then you force a turnover and you get points out of that. I mean, they're right there. Those are several things that you love to see from the Bears. Responding to when things kind of go south a little bit, and then keeping the foot on the gas and taking advantage of those mistakes. Because look, they could have easily not scored any points on that fumble. They could have gone into the half just up whatever it was, 17-14. But they were able to at least get a field goal out of it. And you say, okay, you got points. You took advantage of that turnover because, Sean, how many times have the Bears forced a turnover and they can't take advantage? Seems like a lot, right?
If I had to do some quick math in my head, I would say 99.9% of the time.
Sure feels that way. So I really do think that getting that field goal at the end of the first half was big, because then they got the ball right back to start the second half. And what'd they do? They scored a field goal. They got more points. They just kept adding on, and they kept the offense at bay for the Patriots. I mean, in the second half, the Patriots didn't even threaten to score. Like, they didn't even get like, oh, they're right at field goal range, or, they just have to hang on here, or maybe they'll get some points. No, they did not threaten once in the second half.
Yeah, it was the Bears put the clamps, and that's been the second half of every game. For the most part, the Bears have really clamped down.
They have.
I mean, they've only given up one legitimate touchdown in the second half through 7 weeks. There was the one where they gave up to the
that was the Vikings, wasn't it?
No, the Vikings, I guess. But then the Washington had that one on the turnover. But
the fumbled punt.
Yeah, and so it's like at the 7-yard line. Like, okay.
Right.
But I mean, the Bears have been so stingy on defense in the second half of games, and it's crazy because we spent 4 years. Let's take out the first year of Matt Nagy, where Vic Fangio was just, coaching his mind out. But the last 3 years of Matt Nagy, we are so used to, after the second half, the other team making adjustments and us just getting our lunch handed to us. This is so much nicer, is going into halftime, making adjustments and coming out and playing better. That's awesome.
It is. And I think that you can look at how the defense played in that game. What I really loved, just from the beginning too, is they did such a good job of just getting to the ball, just swarming there. They didn't let them run. They were able to get some interceptions. They were getting pressure on the quarterback. I mean, they were doing it all. You had 4 turnovers in that game, 3 picks, and a fumble recovery. You had a couple of sacks. You had some decent pressure on the quarterback. And when they tried to put the ball on the ground or try to do short plays, they tackled really, really well. They didn't let them get those extra yards.
Yeah, it was a really good effort. I would say that's probably your Jaquan Brisker breakout game.
And that was after he got kicked in the ding-ding.
You know what? Mac Jones is a dirty player.
Oh, he said it. Sean said it.
He's the Grayson Allen of the NFL.
Wow.
That was a cheap shot. And, at first I didn't think so, but when I watched different angles and replays of it, I was like,
yeah.
there's no way you could ever convince me he wasn't trying to kick him.
But you know what? That ding ding shot was karma.
But with Bears had the last laugh. Jaquan Brisker had the last laugh because that interception was insane.
Yeah, he had to reach up with one hand to pull that down.
Yeah, he essentially he had to high point that with one hand, come down with it, and stay in bounds. That was arguably one of the best interceptions I have seen in a long time. And kudos to him. He was all over the place. I love to see it.
Well, that was the great thing about this game, is that the rookies shined. The young kids shined. You had Kyler Gordon make some plays. Jaquan Brisker was obviously your defensive player of the game, and he ain't a rookie, but you know what? An important player on your team, Roquan Smith, he had a nice night.
Yeah, he did. He absolutely did. Tevin Jenkins also had himself a nice night.
Yes, he did. I think, too, that you have to give a little credit. And I know, it's whatever, but I have to say it. I think you got to give a little bit of credit to Cairo Santos for nailing all those field goals. One was a 50-yarder.
I believe he was the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week.
He was.
Cairo Santos was great. He has not missed a field goal yet this season. But who else has played well? I think Braxton Jones actually played pretty well. And Larry Borum did not. Larry Borum had a bad game.
Yeah, I mean, that was one little negative on that game. And obviously, luckily for him, it was covered up quite a bit by everything else. If they would have lost that game 36-10, we would be talking a lot more about Larry Borum. But obviously, in this case, all the goods really outweighed the few bads.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I thought the offensive line played pretty well. It was probably, other than Judah, just using Larry Borum as a turnstile. Other than that, he had a pretty clean pocket it was probably the cleanest pocket that he has had for a whole game in his career.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing too is when you look at the line that you have, and we can say that they played well for what they are, and also acknowledge that it was far from perfect. We can obviously say that, but I feel like part of the reason that we saw some of the success was because of how Luke Getsy called plays. I think that him keeping the other team off balance really helped things. And listen, we know that Luke Getsy is still very new at this. We saw some very puzzling things early on, but I think him getting better at this, in my opinion, I think his play calling the last two games has gotten a lot better. I think that him getting better at this can benefit that offensive line. And I think part of their success in this last game was thanks to the way things were called, because those designed runs were executed very, very well. And it takes a lot of guys to make that happen.
I mean, it's to be fair to Luke Getsy, calling plays is a skill that you have to learn and improve on. Right. You might know the offense. You could know offenses inside and out and know how to implement an offense, but then actually calling the plays is something else. And it's not a just step right in and you're good at it.
Right.
You build on it. And this is a really dumbed down kind of example, but if you've ever played any of the Madden games, is going through plays, you probably end up calling the same plays a lot over and over because you have comfort level in it until you really play a long time and get the hang of the whole playbook. It's the same thing is when you're a first time play caller, which Luke Getsy is, you're probably not going to vary things up as much because it's not second nature to you. He's getting better. You're seeing him now roll out fields to the outside. You've seen him start to scheme open Darnell Mooney. And he's seeing what works and what doesn't based on the defense in front of him and the players that he has. Because sometimes you're like this, drawing it up on paper, you're like, this is going to work. But if, Larry Borum can't hold this block against Judah, then all right, then it's definitely not going to work. Or if, you have a player that consistently can't get off the press at the line of scrimmage at wide receiver, you're learning what works with the players you have, the defense in front of you, etc. And I think we're seeing improvement, and I'm really going to be interested in against the Cowboys because, man, that Cowboys pass rush is killer.
That's a nightmare matchup for the Bears.
It really is. So I am curious to see, because I'm not going to say they're susceptible to the run. But if you're going to beat that team, it's going to be on the back of your running game. And we
got a pretty damn good one.
Statistically, the Bears are number 1 in the NFL in rushing. They have
and we saw that on display in Foxborough. I mean, the run game was amazing. Justin Fields was using his legs making plays. I mentioned those design runs. Those design runs were executed beautifully. I loved watching that. I also loved seeing, and we're obviously going to get into Justin Fields in a minute, but when you saw him roll out towards the goal line and get in the end zone, I literally screamed at the TV, why couldn't they have done that last week against the Commanders? I wanted to see more of that last week against the Commanders where he rolls out like that. We saw that. We saw the designed runs. And man, Montgomery and Herbert, they were really churning those legs and getting extra yards. They did a great job the other night.
I'm glad you brought up Montgomery and Herbert. I love David Montgomery. This is not going to be a criticism of David Montgomery at all, but I would be shocked if he's a Bear next year.
Yeah, I mean, just giving second contracts to running backs, unless you're like a generational guy, is really, really tough. I don't think that he's the kind of guy where you're going to pay a lot of money, even though he is a valuable asset to your team. I mean, I think the Bears are just going to draft a replacement. They're going to go out, draft another guy. I mean, that's what Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace did with Jordan Howard. Though they traded him away, I don't think they're going to trade Montgomery away, but they moved on. They're like, all right, we had him for a few years, and now we're going to draft his replacement.
If they could get a draft pick for David Montgomery, I would not be shocked. I mean, we've got what, the better part of a week before the trade deadline. It's if you're asking me, we'll get into this shortly, but we're recording this on Wednesday, and Robert Quinn got traded today to the Eagles. So if you would have asked me prior to today what the players that I thought in the realm of likely possibility would be traded, Robert Quinn would be number 1. I would probably say Roquan number 2, David Montgomery 3. So
would you put Eddie Jackson on that list?
I would not, to be honest with you. Eddie Jackson is playing very well, and he's not 30 yet. And
yeah, I don't want to trade him away. I'm just wondering.
I think you really open up a hole on your in your defensive backfield if you get rid of him. And I don't know if you're going to get much for him without trading him, because he's got a few years left on that contract. And, I've been talking about like, oh, you could cut him after this season. He becomes affordable to cut where you could. But also, honestly, if he plays like this, I would roll him back out next year.
I would too.
It takes away one hole that you have to fill. Is sure he's going to cost, I think, like $15 million next year, but for the way he's played this year, that's like market value for a safety. And honestly, after the Roquan Smith trade, do you know what the Bears cap space?
You mean the Robert Quinn trade?
All right, the Robert Quinn. Why do I keep saying Roquan?
I know. I keep wanting to say Roquan Smith too.
After the Robert Quinn trade, do you know how much money the Bears have in salary cap space without cutting anybody else, just as is?
Is it over 100 million?
It is over 125 million.
Holy smokes.
So if you
Ryan Poles is loving that.
If you were to rank the teams by most salary cap to least salary cap, Bears are number one, and they're more than double the team that's number two.
And who is number two?
I don't remember. Maybe Jacksonville? But yeah, the Bears have more than double. After this trade, they have more than double the team with the second most salary cap space.
And, I just want to comment on that Robert Quinn trade really quick. I think the return is more than fair for a 32-year-old defensive end who isn't really putting up great numbers right now. And I know we've said and hinted what our feelings are not trading him when his, quote, value was higher after the great season he had last year. But I also think, too, that there just wasn't my whole theory is there really just wasn't a market to trade him in the offseason. I mean, yeah, he just came off of a big year, but are other NFL GMs saying, you know what, we need to give up capital right now in the offseason to trade for a 32-year-old defensive end? I think that's a guy that you trade when teams are looking to buy to make a Super Bowl run in season. So I can't be too hard on Ryan Poles for not trading him in the offseason, because I just frankly think there probably, when I think about it, probably really wasn't much of a market for him.
Yeah, I mean, while we're on it, we could dive in here before going back to the game. So Robert Quinn, it was probably most likely he was going to be traded at the deadline rather than in the off season, because in the off season, he's coming off of 18 and a half sacks, 19 and a half sacks, whatever he had
broke the record, Richard Dent's record.
Yeah. He broke the Bears record for a Bears team that historically has had a great defense. He broke the all-time single season sack mark. He's coming off of that. Everybody and their mother knows that it was going to be some regression. To what degree? Nobody knows. But at that, his 32 years old, there's no way he was going to repeat that. So we all knew there was going to be some regression, whether that was minimal and he got 15 sacks, or it was going to be real bad and he has no sacks. There was going to be some regression. And so it was going to be a team that has all the, there's no leverage to get Robert Quinn from the Bears at a lower draft pick. So I don't know if there was ever really a market for him, because if the Bears could have got a second or a third for him, I think they would have taken it.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah, I mean, I don't see any way why a team would offer that high for a player at that age making that money, even if he did come off that great year.
Yeah, so I don't think the offseason market was there, but at the trade deadline, there are teams that go, I don't have any other options, and either the player I thought was going to be able to do the job can't, or like the Eagles case, they had an injury, and it's it's one of the weaknesses that they do have. They're trying to shore it up. Then it becomes a market again. And I still don't think it was that great of a market because he comes with a contract that another team would have to, I guess it's non-guaranteed after this year, but essentially the Bears were not going to pay him. They were going to cut him after the season anyway, no matter what.
Right. So you might as well get something for him.
So you got a 4th round pick for him, and you eat almost the entire amount of the salary for this year, but you're gaining a 4th round draft pick, which is, if you think about it, you just got your starting left tackle with a 5th round pick. So it is a pick that you can make very valuable.
Right. Exactly.
And,
I mean, a 4th round pick in the NFL is nothing to gawk at.
Yeah. And I see a lot of Bears fans that are like, well, Von Miller got a 2nd and a 4th or whatever, 2nd and a 3rd. But Von Miller has a Hall of Fame career. Robert Quinn is really nice player, not going to be in the Hall of Fame. Von Miller is going to be in the Hall of Fame, and he is still at a higher level of play. And he was
Robert Quinn has 1 sack all year.
Yeah. And Von Miller also had an expiring contract instead of a contract that another team's going to have to deal with. And Robert Quinn has 1 sack through 7 games. So, I'm sure that production is going to go way up when he goes to Philadelphia, and they have a very good defense. Like, I'm sure he's going to have more opportunity, but you're getting the best value you can. And they went, you know what, 4th rounder, we will pull the trigger because we can turn that into something.
Exactly. Like, I have no reason to look at this trade and be like, yeah, this is awful. This is bad. You're getting the best you can for a guy that caliber. Hell, I was thinking, man, if they trade him, it's probably gonna be like a 5th or 6th round pick at this point. And you know what? You're retaining a lot of that salary. That's how you get a better pick. If you're giving away that salary, more of a dump, well, then you're not getting as good of a pick. So I take the pick over some salary relief when it's not going to matter next year. They have so much room next year. So it's nothing really to even fret about.
The salary cap doesn't matter this year. Like, in what cap space?
No, right, exactly. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, with what cap space you have right now, you are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You're in the top 10 in salary cap space for 2022. So, like, who cares? It doesn't matter. And next year,
exactly.
And it's the Falcons that are the number 2.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Ryan Pace does it again.
Actually, I said it was the Jaguars, but they're currently almost $500,000 over the cap for next year.
Oh, wow.
And the Saints, again, are $56.5 million over the cap.
They just keep kicking that can down the road, don't they?
They really do. And it is going to be rough. They're going to have to, I guess they'll be able to draft a quarterback high this year and then take that savings from the quarterbacks and just eat it. They're still going to have to kick some of that money down the road, but be able to at least catch up with a rookie quarterback salary. But that's neither here nor there.
I just picture the Saints, the front office, sitting around a table with money, and they're just trying to force it down their throats. Oh, we have to eat this. Oh.
I have a quick question. This is not Bears related. But how in the world did the Seattle Seahawks trick the rest of the NFL and all of the fans and all of the media into thinking Russell Wilson wasn't a lunatic and a weirdo?
Yeah, it's becoming more and more obvious every passing week. It really, he came off as a really down-to-earth, humble guy for so many years in Seattle. And then you hear some of the ex-teammates talk, and then you see some of the weirdness from him. And it's just like, wow, okay, then.
Yeah, you're like, this guy's a weirdo.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a bit of an oddball. You see that serial killer like commercial for Subway?
I did.
Careful. It's spicy.
Yeah, just like, don't let that man do anything in front of a camera. And how big of a bullet did we dodge that Ryan Pace didn't trade for him?
Thank you for signing Andy Dalton.
I take back anything I said about the Andy Dalton signing. It was a flesh wound as opposed to the fatal shot, because you're like, all right, we absorbed that, we're good. But that Russell Wilson trade would have been real bad.
Yeah, and hey, you know what? People were talking shit about Andy Dalton the other night when he was playing not so hot in New Orleans. But you know what? I said, that man last year, you know what that man did? He won the silver football on Thanksgiving Day. You're going to disrespect a silver football winner, the man who rose that silver football over his head after he beat the winless Detroit Lions 16-14. Are you going to disrespect that man?
Listen, is he an MVP? No, he's not an MVP.
Nobody's an MVP.
We had an MVP.
Yes,
Mitchell
we
Trubisky.
did.
Mitchell Trubisky, our own MVP.
That was I still laugh. I still laugh that I got to watch the 2020 8-8 Bears 500 mediocre play in the playoffs on Nickelodeon.
Yeah, like what if you could go back in time and tell your like 8-year-old self that?
Yeah. Hey, Alex, guess what? There's going to be one day you're going to be watching Nickelodeon like you do. You watch your SpongeBob, your Fairly Odd Parents, your Jimmy Neutron, your Hey Arnold, your Rugrats. But this time it's going to be a Bears playoff game.
I mean, that's how much the world thought of that Bears playoff game. They're like, it's on Nickelodeon.
Yeah, let's watch SpongeBob and Slime and, all that fun stuff. Oh, yeah, the Bears are in the playoffs somehow.
The Bears. But yeah, I mean, the Robert Quinn trade, it just made sense. I mean, Robert Quinn is beloved on this team. And we saw that today when Roquan Smith, who I actually called the right name here, cried when he found out. And it's a reminder. We bring this up a lot, but these are all human beings.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
They're all human beings, and there's emotions that go in this. This is somebody that they voted as the team captain.
Yeah, I mean that's you get voted team captain. That says a lot about you.
So, I would hope that would be awesome if they didn't bring in a permanent captain for the rest of the season, and they just kept it as, Roquan Smith. I'm sorry, Robert Quinn is still the captain, and because Robert Quinn came in here and he was a fan favorite. He was great to the media. He he broke the all-time sack record. The single season sack record. That he was a great teammate. He was a great mentor to the younger players. Didn't do anything wrong, and let's be happy. He's going to go to a team he could possibly win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And this is a business ultimately, and the Bears got, I would say, fair market value for him, and you take that, and you go, all right, he's clearly not part of the rebuild, and you move on. And I'm sure there's going to be other moves. Now, people are like, well, why aren't the Bears going to trade for a wide receiver? And here's the thing. The Bears aren't doing anything to benefit them for 2022.
No.
These moves are for 2023 and beyond. Like, of course, they're a better team if Robert Quinn is on them for 2022. But they're going to get by because, you know what? Travis Gibson is going to get more reps. Dominique Robinson's going to get more reps. You're going to have these young players get more reps, and you're going to be able to have more tape of them to evaluate them for next year. Are these guys the guys that we're going to ride with next year, or are we going to have to upgrade? And you get a better sense when they have more playing time, because Robert Quinn led the defensive linemen in snaps this year. So also, you're getting that salary cap relief. Did you need it? No, but you know what? It's when you get down to the nitty gritty, it's always better to have more salary cap space. And is adding a wide receiver for 2022 benefiting you? Sure, in the short term. And I'm not opposed to going and getting a wide receiver either, but it's going to have to be somebody that either they can lock up in an extension or has multiple years of team control left.
Right, exactly. I don't think that they're going to make that big move for a wide receiver. They did bring in a wide receiver, but that's a small move. Those are the types of moves you're going to see. It's not going to be a significant trade by any means. And, as much as I would love more receiver help for Justin Fields, you just got to remember the position that we're in. And I'm sure that they'd rather gain assets than lose some. And I mean, draft picks and all that kind of thing. I mean, to make a big splash in a season where you're not going anywhere, that's just not part of Ryan Poles' plan. It's just not.
I mean, and you know what? If you could score somebody like a Jerry Jeudy, who's still like 25.
Judy.
And if you could score a guy like him and for like a second round pick, all right, then that's something you consider. It just, does it make sense for your team? And, Ryan Poles, you're right, does not want to trade away picks. But if you get value and for a guy that you can keep for years to come, you go, okay, maybe we do that. I'm not holding my breath about it, but I'm just saying in the realm of possibilities. It's at least within it because it makes sense, but I don't think they're making any short-term trades. The help that Justin Fields is going to get at wide receiver most likely is Byron Pringle coming back from injury, which he was designated for return, I believe, today. So he's coming back soon.
You'll have him and N'Keal Harry, and then you got Equanimeous St. Brown, Darnell Mooney, Pettis. So, I mean, you kind of can see what your future core is going to be like through the rest of the year. And listen, they're getting schemed open better, then it's still not going to be great, but you might be able to do a little more when they're actually open. And we saw them get schemed open a lot better in this past game. So really, you look at the situation and you say, well, okay, we're heading into week 8. We pretty much got to make do with what we have. And it's going to get ugly at times. It's still going to be ugly. This type of win that we saw in New England is one that I do think can have some positive long-term effects, but we are not suddenly saying, oh, maybe they do have a shot at the playoffs, and maybe they technically will make it a little close just because the NFC is absolute dookie pants. But realistically, we know this team is not winning a Super Bowl and not winning any meaningful playoff games. And so, we have to take what we can build off this past win, but also put the season in perspective, keep that in perspective. That long-term vision hasn't changed.
Yeah, I don't want one win against the Patriots to change the view of what this team is right now or where it's going long term. I saw a lot of people being like, I thought the Bears might trade to try to make a playoff run.
No, 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 no.
Number one, did you look at the second half of the schedule? It's like a buzzsaw. Like you still have, even though the Green Bay Packers are doo-doo sandwiches, they are still going to beat us.
Yeah.
We gotta play the Vikings again. We got to play the Bills. We got to play the Eagles. Like we've got a lot of good teams still left to play. And like, I don't know where you think all these wins are coming from.
Couldn't you steal another good win or two? Sure, but that's a lot
Absolutely.
to ask for.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. This is the NFL. There's going to be a game that they win that we didn't expect them to win. And there's going to be a game that they lose that you're like, how did they lose that game?
The Commanders game.
The Commanders game. The Giants game. The Bears should have beat the Giants. They should have beat the Commanders. Those are just games that they lost that they shouldn't have lost. And in the grand scheme of things, does it matter? No, because they're going to get a better draft pick. I just don't want to have the laughing stock team that gets the number 1, 2, or 3 pick. But if they get a top 10 pick, I'm not going to be mad. They're going to have a good talent pool to pick from.
Right. Exactly.
And honestly, if they get like the 5th or 6th pick with how many good quarterbacks are coming out in this draft, the Bears could take advantage and get an extra first round pick by trading back and getting a team's next year's number 1. So,
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, look what the Giants did when they got the Bears number 1 pick. They picked up 2 studs in last year's draft.
Yeah. I mean, I think that trading back is a real option depending on where they are. I mean, I don't think they're going to be taking a quarterback. I think that they right now are focusing on Justin Fields, who I do want to talk about because we haven't really talked about, because I mean, that's important.
Absolutely. And, could the Bears make a move at quarterback? It's possible. It's not their quarterback, but I think it's stupid. It's just because he's not the guy you picked doesn't mean that you should move on from him. Justin Fields, I still believe, is going to be a very good NFL player. There's just still things that got to be worked on. Mm-hmm. And to be honest with you, a lot of those things, sure, there's things that are out of his control. Like when you look downfield and there's not an open receiver, not his fault. When Sam Mustipher gets pushed straight back, like he's a blocking sled, not his fault. But when he tries to throw weird arm angles on swing passes, like that's a mental block. Like he can't throw a swing pass. That is something he needs to work on.
Throwing the ball away in certain situations when you're going to get sacked. We saw that early in the game.
Absolutely. Not fumbling the ball. Those are all things he can work on.
I think sliding too is something he has to work on too.
I mean, there's been times where he's been fine, and there's times when he hasn't.
Just for the number, if he's going to be putting himself out there for that many times, I think it's important to really, really lock that down. That's just my opinion.
Right. But I still think his ceiling is Josh Allen.
I mean, a lot of people are comparing him to Lamar Jackson.
I don't think so. I see him way more as Josh Allen. Even the career arc. At this point in Josh Allen's career, people were like, not an NFL quarterback, not going to make it.
No, I agree with that. I do agree with that. Yes.
I mean, I still say is the body size, the way that like is Justin Fields is fast and his feet are his weapons. He's not in the same class as Lamar Jackson in that way, though. I mean, I think
there's some pretty damn impressive things.
Oh no, there's. I mean,
moldably.
it is just Lamar Jackson's ability to scramble and run is like generational, and
you think of Michael Vick when you see that.
Yes, and I think Justin Fields is very, very good with his ability to run. I just don't think he has that home run. He break off big chunks, but that's what we saw with Josh Allen. Josh Allen is a very athletic guy, and he's a lot bigger and stronger than he looks like, just like Justin Fields. And both got cannons for arms. It is just, but if you look, I mean, Josh Allen really took off when you gave him a real weapon. And I think you're going to see that with Justin Fields is they work on those things where he makes mistakes, and then you give him weapons. You give him a better offensive line. And honestly, the offensive line, it's not like you need a whole new offensive line. It's you got to upgrade at center and left guard. I think you have building blocks at left tackle and right guard. I don't know. It sucks that Doug Kramer got hurt because I think he would have had a real opportunity to play.
Yeah, that is
instead
a bummer.
Of I'm not saying I don't know if Doug Kramer will be good or not, but he would have gotten an opportunity because Sam Mustipher is terrible. But Lucas Patrick, I guess if he stays healthy, you could put him back at center for next year and give yourself another year to upgrade. But you got two spots on the offensive line where you need to upgrade: right tackle, left guard. And I guess Cody Whitehair will be back. So really right tackle. But that then you really can focus on weapons. Go after Mike Gesicki at tight end. Go after whoever the best wide receiver on the board is when you're drafting in your top 10 pick. There's a lot of things you can do, and you've got $125 million to spend.
Yeah, the resources will be there.
I think Justin Fields took big steps. I'm not going to say this is his coming out game, but what he did against a tough defense that manhandled, is this an elite defense? No, but did they manhandle the Lions, who were the number one offense in football, like the week before? Yeah, they did great, and scored a lot of points, did a lot of good things. But it was on prime time in front of a national audience. It was the turnovers that made it not a coming out game.
I mean, the one pick was kind of bad luck.
That was bad luck, but you also had a couple throws that could have been picked off. So the pick was a deflection that goes up. Like, what are you going to do? And I know I've saw during the game a lot of people tweeting, "Oh, Justin Fields probably leads the league in passes that are deflected at the line." And I saw somebody look it up. He's actually 16th, so he's right in the middle. That's just experience. Is learning those throwing lanes, because he's not short, but he is also not 6'5", 6'6". So he's going to have to watch for those throwing lanes and, time it. Don't stare down a receiver, because your defensive lineman's going to read that as well as the safeties and time that and knock it down. You can improve, but it's not like he's terrible. He's in the middle of the pack of NFL quarterbacks.
Right.
So I was overall really happy. The Bears played a really good game. Defense came out, and it's funny. The Patriots fan were so riled up about, Bailey Zappi coming in there and doing well on the first two drives. And then the Bears really said to him, yeah, not today, son. I'm surprised they didn't put Mac Jones back in. I don't know if there's a quarterback controversy in New England, because I don't think you have two good quarterbacks. I think you still don't know what you have. So I don't know if you call that a controversy. I think you have two options and you don't know which one's the solution.
Yeah, I mean, I still think Mac Jones could be a serviceable guy. I just don't think Mac Jones is going to be the type of quarterback where you have to rely on him and him alone to win you a game.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some nice things out of Bailey Zappi, but man, that second half, he looked brutal.
Yeah, that was no bueno. And credit the Bears for obviously keeping the pressure on him and being able to pick those passes off. But yeah, no, he did not look good at all. I mean, he looked more nervous than Justin Fields. And I think what really spoke to me about Justin Fields in this game was he didn't let that get to him. He didn't let Foxborough get to him in the crowd. We've seen him do the breathing exercises and calming down and everything, whereas he did not let that pressure get to him. I think that it was one nice takeaway from this game for Justin Fields, and he got off the ground running. You saw him complete a few passes right off the gate. First drive of the game, 3rd and 4, they connect for a first down with Darnell Mooney. He rolled out, he kept it moving, was able to get some nice chunk plays using his arm, connecting with his guys. And, that's another thing that I think is worth mentioning too in this game, is that he was able on that first drive to really get things going. They kicked a field goal. And how many times this season did we see the first drive just look completely awful? Like they didn't get going until the second half. I think it was huge for Justin Fields to get off to that start where they at least got points on the board and had some nice chunk plays on that first drive.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it on Twitter, but I think it's worth rehashing here. Is there are drives where you go, oh man, a field goal was a great outcome here.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other drives where you're like, a field goal is a bad play. And in this game, I thought for the most part, you scored touchdowns when you should have scored touchdowns, and field goals were when that was the best option. And the difference is, like, if you have a drive where things just aren't going well, and you've gotten bailed out on a couple of series or in a couple of first downs by defensive penalty, and things just aren't going well, and you hit one big pass to get you into field goal range, and you kick a field goal, you're like, okay, you know what? We'll take that. We'll come back, regroup, try to figure out how to make the offense work better, but let's take the points. That's a situation where you're like, okay, that works. But when you drive down the field methodical and you're running the ball well, you're hitting, throws down the middle for chunk plays and you're just moving smoothly and you get to like 1st and 5 or 1st and goal from the 5 and then you just can't punch it in and you settle for a field goal, that's bad.
Yes.
Got to score touchdowns there. So it's field goals aren't inherently bad, but you've got to score touchdowns when you are in a situation to score touchdowns. Another case would be like, all right, if you drove down and, you got a taunting penalty, made it 1st and 25 or 2nd and 25, and you're like, that's a big hole to get out of. Let's kick a field goal. Okay. But you've really got to score touchdowns when you're supposed to score touchdowns. Field goal should be as a last resort. And we saw that starting to come to fruition in that game is they scored the touchdowns they were supposed to score. And I think that is something that young teams have to learn. It's part of this culture growth is learn when, how to score, how to be a good offense, how to do these things, how to win games, how to close them out, how to keep your foot on the gas when you've got a team that you've got on the ropes. These are all things you have to learn, and everything came up Millhouse in that game.
Yes, it did. And you know what else we have to mention? And this is credit to the whole offense, including Justin Fields. They did a really good job converting on 3rd down in this game. That made a big difference.
Absolutely. And what happened in this game is not indicative because this is a growing team that lacks a lot of talent, top end talent.
Mm-hmm.
They could have had this amazing game and come in, have a good week of practice, show up against the Dallas Cowboys in the next game and shit the bed.
Absolutely. And like I said before, that Dallas matchup for the Bears is not great for them.
No. And honestly, if I'm Luke Getsy, I think you have to go in with a plan B. I don't think you can go in there with one game plan because the way the strength of the Cowboys defense directly lines up with one of your inherent weaknesses, and that is pass rushing and pass protection. So if I'm the Bears, I have a plan B with our offensive strategy because if plan A doesn't work, this will turn into last year's Cleveland Browns game real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, you do not want that. And I do feel better about this coaching regime making the possible adjustments now than I did last year or even earlier this year when I was a bit more weary, and I made it very clear I was a bit more weary. Now I feel a little better about them at least scheming to try to optimize their matchup, even if it doesn't necessarily work out really well. Because like you said, you can only do so much with what you have, but what happened in Cleveland last year was just complete, utter negligence.
Yeah, that was just an absolutely abysmal coaching job. The players didn't play well, but man, that's on the coaches too, because you botched that. But like, if you go in there and you're like, you know what, we're struggling to stop Micah Parsons from rushing in, you're like, okay, well, let's rely heavy on running. Let's run right at Micah Parsons. You got to have a game plan. You're like, all right, if this is what we want to do, what if it doesn't work? Let's be ready. It's like, that's what I want to see. I want to see, let's be ready in case this game plan doesn't work, because it's one thing if you can't get receivers open, and you have to dink and dunk down the field. Yeah, okay, we can do it. It's just slow and methodical. But when a team can pin their ears back and rush the passer, and the other team can't stop them, that's when games get ugly. And
yeah,
so I think we might see the series 1 just get ugly. I wouldn't be surprised if series 1 we see 2 sacks of Justin Fields. But It's you come back and you make adjustments and you have a plan B. Okay, you know what? Let's run right at Micah Parsons, because as good as he is rushing the passer, he's susceptible, which is the same thing teams did against Khalil Mack. Is let's take him away by rushing right at him. And and if that doesn't work and they're making plays, what is plan B? And I think we're starting to get a little more confidence in this coaching staff, that even if things aren't going to go as we hoped, that they're going to make adjustments.
Yeah, and I think that they know going to this game, they're going to have to pound the ball down their throat. I think that's going to be a big part of this. And, they managed the run so well, it executed so well, but you look at the game against New England, and Justin Fields, he was one of the reasons you won this game. They didn't win with him. One of the main reasons they won was because of him, which is a good thing. He only did pass 21 times, but this was a situation where you're like, you know what? You got the lead in the second half. We're just going to pound the ball. That's just a strategy where you're at in the game. It wasn't because they were scared to use Justin Fields, because Justin Fields showed a lot of confidence in that game. You didn't need to throw the ball in the second half. You were just trying to pound and control the clock and eat away. And that's exactly what happened. And we see how good this rushing game can be. So I think it's going to be another situation against Dallas where Justin Fields isn't going to be passing a whole lot. They're going to try to beat them on the ground.
Yeah, I think if the Bears have any hope of winning this, they're going to have to run the ball between Herbert, Montgomery, and designed runs by Justin Fields, somewhere between 35 and 40 times running the ball.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to have him pass. At least I don't want them to see him pass in the pocket too much. You want to see him get out of the pocket as quick as possible, whether it's rolling out a bootleg, a design run, whatever, if you're not going to run the ball. So it'll be interesting to see how they're able to execute with that. And I think, too, one of the big components of being a successful offense is being able to execute screenplays. So are we going to see some of those types of plays against the Dallas Cowboys, get the ball out quickly, try to execute a screen? I think Cole Kmet has looked a bit better overall recently. I thought he had a nice game against the New England Patriots overall. So, hopefully he could kind of build on that. It's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a really tough game. And like you said, as great as this win felt, and I think that it does inject some confidence in the long-term future with Justin Fields and just how this team is going forward, how they're coached, how they're managed. They played very disciplined, not too many stupid penalties, very few penalties. But with all that said, this is a matchup where we could say, yeah, I could see this being an ugly one for the Bears.
Yeah, and I would like to see less tight end screen passes. I think you're seeing much better results with them to Khalil Herbert, David Montgomery.
Oh yeah, I want to see that more than anything. I'm just saying, I'm curious to see if they implement any of that other stuff.
I think you need to. It's those are the things that make pass rush slow down. Is keep them running. So I think you're going to see a lot of runs to the outside where those linemen are going to have to run down plays, screen passes. I would like to see some 3-step drops with hitting hot receivers, for short gains. Anything to slow down that pass rush. And part of that is going to be they're going to have to pound the ball. And it might not be successful at first, but you're going to have to run the football.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's if anything, this game does give you a little bit more optimism long term for this, or for the rest of the season. But still, I'm not being crazy here when I'm saying that it's still not going to be a fun second half of the season per se, because they get the Cowboys, which is a tough team, the Dolphins, Lions is a winnable game, Falcons is a winnable game, Jets is a winnable game, but that Jets team is actually pretty tough.
That defense is tough.
Their offense is abysmal, but that defense is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And they lost the running back.
Brees,
I know they traded for somebody, but still that's different animal. That offense is not good. That's the whole hope, is it's probably going to be a Commanders type game.
Yep.
Then you get the Packers, which they just have our number, even though everybody's kicked that team's ass.
They look awful right now. That team, they're not looking like, oh, they're losing a couple of fluke games like they did in 2018 when they missed the playoffs. They legitimately look terrible right now.
Yeah, they can't move the ball. Those receivers, everybody outside of Green Bay said that's receiving core. I take that back. Everybody in the national media is like, who the Bears have the worst wide receiver core. I still say the Packers have a worse receiving core than the Bears.
I mean, you see how visibly frustrated Aaron Rodgers is getting.
He's extraordinarily frustrated. And I mean, I don't know who's more frustrated, him or Tom Brady.
Yeah, they're both pretty frustrated right now. But you know what? That's what happens when you don't always have the weapons around you. Yep. I mean, Devontae, we knew that losing Devontae Adams in Green Bay was going to make a difference.
Yeah, because Devontae Adams makes every other receiver better, because he is a threat to score anytime he touches the ball, and he can beat any coverage. You can't shut him down with single coverage, and it makes everybody else's job that much easier. And you take him away, and suddenly he goes, uh-oh, there is nobody. And maybe some of these receivers develop. You see a little flash here, of, of Christian Watson or Romeo Dobbs or whoever. Like, okay, maybe this is them taking a step forward, but then they take a big step back, and nobody. And, Aaron Rodgers will punish players by not throwing them the ball. And now nobody's getting the ball except Robert Tonyan. I think Robert Tonyan's actually pretty good. If it wasn't for Robert Tonyan, this team would be abysmal.
Yeah.
And there's talk that they're going to trade the running back.
That'll be interesting to see.
And it's more out of they can't afford to pay him after this season. So they might part ways with him while the iron is hot. If that's the case, man, they lose him. That team is trash.
Not great, Bob.
I mean, without Aaron Jones, team is bad. But then you get the Eagles and Bills back to back games is Packers, Eagles, Bills.
That's tough.
So is what it is. But let's move on a little bit. We actually have hockey going on and basketball going on. Where do you want to go?
We need to talk some Bulls. We haven't talked a lot of Bulls. I think we need to talk some Bulls.
All right. Let's jump into this. So the Bulls season has been up and down.
Mm-hmm.
We had a really nice win game 1 against the Heat. We had a really nice win against the Boston Celtics.
Same night the Bears beat the Patriots.
Yes, we said what's up to the city of Boston. But the other two games, especially the Cleveland game, that was embarrassing.
That's a problem. I mean, Cleveland is one of your division rivals. They are big, they are strong, they are athletic. And that's the thing that worries me is teams like that, when they have that size and athleticism on you, it's tough to beat. And they were able to do that at home. They did it to you at home.
Yeah, it was your home opener.
Yeah. And it was ugly. It felt like one of those playoff games against Milwaukee. And you're like, oh, geez, here we go again. I mean, it's one of those things where you just look at it and say, this is what you got to deal with. I mean, that's just a fact.
You know, and out of abundance of caution, I have been told that Zach LaVine will not be playing back-to-back games at all this season.
Well, okay. All right. That's something that really needs to be addressed because what the hell?
I have been told that there is nothing wrong. It is being cautious, but to not play him opening night is weird.
There is a difference between load management and like nursing an injury. Load management is very common now. It's a common thing, even for healthy athletes. It's not uncommon anymore. But when you're looking at his situation right now, where they say it's fine, it's just load management. On opening night, that just doesn't add up to me. There's got to be something there. And then, of course, they say, oh, you know, there's been a little pain. And even though he said he's fine, and it's been so back and forth on this. And it's frustrating because, you know, Zach LaVine is the most important player on your team. You know that when he's healthy, he's an all-star caliber player. And you know that he has had knee issues in the past. So it is very concerning. And you know that people with chronic knee issues can age quicker than a normal healthy person would. So it's naturally worrisome when he's not playing games.
Agreed.
In that manner, even if you do call it load management, if we're in a situation where you're saying, all right, we've played the first 4 or 5 games of the season, we're going to give LaVine a night off just to give him a night off for a little bit of management. Okay, that's more understandable. But when you miss the first 2 games of the year and you try to say, oh no, he's fine, he's healthy, we're just managing it. In the first 2 games of the year, mind you, the first game was against Miami, one of your biggest rivals in the Eastern Conference, one of those guys, one of those teams that is going to be very important to your playoff push. It doesn't matter if it's game 1 or game 70. You don't want to see that happen.
So I'm not terribly concerned at this point about Zach LaVine. I am concerned about Lonzo Ball.
Yeah, I've been concerned about that for a while. I really just don't think we're going to see him play again this year. And when I mean again, I mean never play this year.
When they say that maybe we'll see him in January, like it's
a little skeptical about that.
It's October. Like, oof. And I'm still skeptical about that. I just don't understand why they waited so long to do anything when he was saying that he had discomfort and he wasn't with the team. Like the media had concern and nobody was like, oh yeah, we're all good. Why didn't they start addressing it at that point and say, all right, if he needs to go and be scoped again, let's scope it early and have him ready at a reasonable point in the season. I mean, I guess having him back in January is better than not having him back at all, but we're not guaranteed that at all in any way, shape, or form.
No.
I think that's the best case scenario.
Yeah, and again, I'm skeptical about that.
I mean, if you're him, it's as much as you want to get back on the court, you also want to go, you know what? I have a career I have to manage here. So
Why rush back?
yeah. And, it's nice to see this team have flashes. They're playing well tonight. They played really well against Boston. They played really well against Miami. I don't know if they're built to succeed in the postseason. I think they're a regular season good team.
Yeah, look, you think you're going to beat Miami in a series? Going to be tough. You beat them in the first game, but that's still going to be tough. You think you're going to beat Philadelphia? Right now, that answer is no. I'm not sure they could beat Cleveland. They're probably not going to beat Milwaukee. They stomped the Celtics the other night, but in a 7-game series, it's a little different.
Yeah, I mean, you did blow them out, but early on, they were beating you all over the court. It was your second unit when their star players sat out or went out. It was your second unit that came in and gave you that spark. You can't always rely on that. Sure, this team is deeper than they were last year, but you haven't addressed the top end talent. Maybe if you had a healthy Lonzo Ball, things are a little different, but you don't. And I think you really need Patrick Williams to just come into his own.
Yeah.
And he hasn't. Sure, tonight, I just had the game on for a few minutes, but looking at the stat line, looks like he's playing all right tonight, but he really like if you were to take an x-ray of his chest, there's no dog in there.
There's plenty of dog in DeMar DeRozan, I'll tell you that much. But yeah, Patrick Williams, this is shit or get off the pot time for him. And I don't want to declare him a bust yet, but
no, my thing is
clock is winding down.
It's the same situation as we had with Lauri Markkanen. And then Lauri Markkanen goes to Cleveland and it's like how Stella got her groove back. Lauri Markkanen found his calling there in Cleveland and is playing very well. Is my fear is that happens again is how do you develop those players in your organization? Patrick Williams, you need to solve that problem and have him be a big time contributor, because if he can develop into a legitimate player, then all the things we're saying have to be reevaluated. But all the things you said were absolutely correct on the assumption that the Patrick Williams we've been seeing is the same Patrick Williams we'll continue to see.
Right.
Now, if he figures it out and suddenly starts dropping 20 a night and is playing great defense and rebounding the hell out of the ball, okay, all right, now let's see how things change up, how things work. But that's a big if, and I don't see any signs of that happening.
Yeah, I mean, we got to see it first. We got to see it at this point before we could believe it. He did spend much of a year hurt, and he is still relatively young, but there has to come that time where you have to start seeing the results, and we're kind of patiently waiting for that now. We're like, all right, we going to see this soon or not? No, it's important for this team. I think that there is reason to be like, all right, let's give him one more year. That's what I'm going to do. I think that's a reasonable thing to do. But if you don't start seeing results soon, I think people have the right to question what's going on here.
Absolutely. And everything that's going on right now is there's nothing where you're like, oh, I got to hit the panic button, because they're going to be a good regular season team. It's going to be a nice regular season team. There's going to be times where they lose games like Cleveland, where you're like, oh, I get really frustrated. But then you're gonna see a lot of those Cleveland and Miami games where they do good things. It's you're gonna see more good than bad. It's just gonna come the playoff time. The only hope we really have, other than Patrick Williams finding his rhythm and Lonzo Ball coming back, is the only shot we really have is the luck of the draw and playing teams in the playoffs at the right time, them at the wrong time, injuries, or we get a cold team, or otherwise we're gonna see the same thing we saw last year.
Yeah. If we could talk about some positives real quick with the Bulls, I have to say, so far, I much prefer watching this version of Vucevic than some of the Vucevic we saw last year.
Yeah, Vuce has been very good so far this year.
The rebounds have been great. He's been doing a great job with that.
Mm-hmm. I like seeing Io with the starters and Caruso coming off the bench. I prefer that. Not a knock on Caruso. I think it's just for the Caruso with the second unit does something for you.
Yeah, I think he's better with that. He's looked pretty good tonight so far.
I think the bench is actually pretty deep this year. So
Goran Dragic has been good to watch.
Yeah, he has. Green has been solid. I think you have a nice team here. It's just not an elite team.
Right. You're not at Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Boston, Miami level.
Yeah. And like Philadelphia, how long did it take them to get to the Philadelphia level?
We said trust the process for many years.
Yeah, they trust the process for like 20 years. And finally you're like, oh, okay, it's finally working. But we just got to go though and say, hey, is at least we're not the Lakers.
Yeah, you mean the retirement home?
That team is terrible.
Would you refer to it as Bills fan puke?
I would indeed. I think that is warranted.
Yeah, it's bad. It is bad.
All right, let's talk a little Blackhawks.
Holy crap. Them, who I actually saw on Sunday, got really good seats a few rows behind the net. I've had fun watching this team. They have more. I didn't think they were going to win 4 games by Thanksgiving.
So last year they didn't win their 4th game until like mid-November, and they've got 4 wins before Halloween. They already have twice as many shorthanded goals in how many games? 5 games?
6 games.
6 games than they did all of last season. Twice as many.
That's hilarious.
So in 82 games last year, 2 shorthanded goals, 4 in 6 games. There isn't a lot of talent here. And the crazy part is has Kane scored a goal yet?
He scored last night.
Okay.
He finally scored his first goal.
Okay. I only watched bits and pieces of that game. But this has all been on the back of minimal goal scoring by Patrick Kane. And I think we all thought that any wins would have to be him carrying the load. And Jonathan Taves has looked better, a lot better. That Taves line has life in it. I think your penalty kill has been so aggressive.
It's been really good. I mean, the other day against Florida, they killed off a 4-minute penalty. then right away, like a 2-minute penalty and then another penalty. They killed all of those off.
Yeah. So is this a good team? Absolutely not. But you can clearly see that they are well coached, and this is a much better system that is in place.
I like Luke Richardson.
Yes, I am not going to shit on him because there's accountability. Their guys are in position, and it is, you don't want to get into deficits like you did early against the Kraken or be outshot like that. But the way that they keep fighting, and I think this is going to be a surprise team. Are they a playoff team? No,
that conference.
Yeah. No. But they're, I think we're in a real tough pickle of if we want Connor Bedard, because I think they're going to surprise us and win a lot more games than anybody really thought.
The good news is this draft is loaded.
Yeah,
it is loaded with talent. And I think this is what really stands out to me. And it was so much more obvious watching it up close in person at the United Center on Sunday, is just how physical this team is. When you look up at that board, you see the difference in hits. It is monumental. And you watch the way that these guys have been able to hit guys, knock people off the puck. That makes a big difference. That's one of the reasons why they're having success like the way they are. They are able to knock guys off the puck, take the puck away, and just able to just bowl over some guys. And the crazy thing about this is that they're scoring goals. I mean, they scored 5 goals on several occasions. And that game against the Red Wings, you won in overtime. You're seeing Max Domi do things. If you're seeing him and Andres Athanasiou, all I can think of right now is trade value.
It is. It's you're seeing good things. I like it. It's and the bad part about it is that I think there's still a lot of journeyman here. I think I would prefer it if we were seeing these results with young building block players, but
those guys ain't ready yet.
Those guys aren't ready yet. If we can see that continuing on the same pattern and build this culture, great.
The culture seems great right now. If you listen to what the players say in that building, they're like, yeah, locker room's great. And we're having fun. We're meshing together, but we're also taking this very seriously. Luke Richardson's like, to hell with rebuilds. You're going to play like you're a Stanley Cup contender. You're going to play hard every night, and we're not going to accept anything less. That's what they've done.
Hey, can we talk about Philippe Ruse?
Yeah. Look at him.
He's played very well.
Sam Lafferty has played well. You're seeing some of these guys like, I didn't really think much about you, but you're doing things. I continue to like what I see from what's the guy they got from Tampa Bay? Blanking on his name.
Yeah, I am too. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Radish.
Yeah.
I like to see that. I really do enjoy the fact that you're seeing some production again from Taze. I did not expect that. I mean, he looked completely just washed and done in the preseason. And in the preseason, the Blackhawks couldn't get anything going offensively.
We saw that preseason where they just couldn't score any goals. And I think we all went, whew, this is going to be a long season. And I don't know what changed, or if they were just like, hey, let's try a few things out. But then once regular season starts, this is what we're doing. I don't know what happened, but this is not the team we saw in the preseason.
No. And I mean, look at the games they've played. Yeah, you got beat by the Avalanche. They're the defending champs, and they have all the talent in the world. They do that to a lot of their opponents. They won a Stanley Cup for a reason. That's a good team. The Vegas Golden Knights, good team. You didn't score, but you held in there. You lost 1-0. And then you've won every game since. You beat the Sharks good 5-2. You had that awesome comeback win against the Wings in overtime, which is just, great beating your oldest rival. I mean, hell, it was kind of nostalgic in a way for me because I didn't see the game live. I was out, but I watched the replays and I saw the accounts of what was going on at the game. And it sounded like half the crowd was Red Wings fans. And I'm like, yeah, I remember as a kid, that was every Hawks Red Wings game at the United Center. But you know what? You came out and you won. You came out and you won the good game. And then you won the game against Seattle, which was just a blast to watch in person. You scored the game tying and game winning goals within 10 seconds. We were just sitting down when that second goal was scored and we all rose back up and cheered again. And then you went out and beat the Panthers, one of the top contenders in the Eastern Conference. I'm just saying that they're playing well against some good teams. Now, this isn't going, in my opinion, there's going to be that reality check at some point.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you can continue to play well-coached hockey, but when there's a massive talent gap with a lot of your matchups, that's just going to overcome anything. I mean, these are scrappy guys, journeymen, just trying to find their way or just kind of going with the flow in their careers. This isn't by any means a stacked roster with elite NHL talent. They're not the Avalanche. They're not the Panthers. They're not the Oilers. They're not the Rangers. They're not a lot of those teams. So it's going to catch up to you eventually. And we're probably still going to see some stretches this season where it is just ugly. But the fact that they're playing as well as they have been so far this season and exceeding expectations greatly so far, I think it shows that there is something good being put in place with this coaching staff, that there is a good culture here, that the vision is right, that there is something right going on at that building. I think that's very important going forward. It also makes you frustrated too. You're like, man, when we had better rosters, wouldn't it have been nice if we had a coach like Luke Richardson? I mean, we wasted all those years with, I don't want to say anything bad personally about Jeremy Colleton, but we've said many times on the show, he was over his head and he was here a little too long. And some of those seasons, you look back and you're like, they were directionless. It felt just kind of wasted. It's just a shame, but the past is the past. You got to move forward.
Yeah. And, but to your point that there's going to be a correction like there is. They're relying on good goaltending by a 35-year-old.
Yeah. Give him a lot of credit too. I mean, Peter Mrazek's out, so give the credit to the guys who are playing.
And I mean, the good thing is I believe I just read a quote from Richardson that they only expect Mrazek to be out like a weekish.
That's good.
Well, he said that type of injury in that player or in that position, you usually see them out about a week, but we'll know more. So I don't know the true standing or when he's coming back, but you are relying on a 35-year-old goalie, and that's that. There's a lot of things where a lot of places for the wheels to fall off here.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a game where you're just going to give up 6-7 goals and it's just not going to be pretty. And you're going to go through some scoring droughts as well. You're going to have those stretches where over 7-8 periods, you score 2-3 total goals.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw that first period against the Kraken. That was an ugly period.
It was, and it looked like a blowout early, and then sudden bam, bam, shorthanded goal, then another goal, and it was tied just like that.
Yeah. So we see how this can fall apart. This team just doesn't give up, though. That's
No, they
the
don't.
nice thing. So I'm enjoying what I'm seeing so far. And if this is what Luke Richardson brings to this team, then I think we're in good hands.
I think so too.
And it'll be nice to see what they can do when they're actually attempting to build a talented roster.
Yeah, exactly.
And it'll be interesting to see that if they're really trying to tank, what they do to tank, because they're not tanking at this point.
Well, is there going to be those calls for Taves and Kane?
Yeah, but I don't think
not anytime soon, but
I don't think the players have to waive their no movement clause, and I don't think Taves is.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm just saying. I'm not saying that the trades are going to happen. I'm just saying that when's that inquiry going to happen?
Oh, I'm sure in the not too distant future. But what's funny right now is if you go to Tankathon, the Blackhawks true actual draft pick is not in the lottery, but they're they actually if the draft were to happen now, they would not get Tampa Bay's number one because it ends up being locked because they're in the top 10. But they early when I looked at it the other day, that the only possibility they had to get a number one pick was through that Tampa Bay number one pick.
Well, hopefully Luke Richardson can flip some guys for some more first rounders. I can dream, right? I mean, I think he's going to trade some of those journeymen. You'll get something. I just don't know how much you're going to get. It depends on how well they play, like a Max Domi or an Andres Athanasiou.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you will. But like I said, things are fun right now, and I don't know. They're playing. This is not a team that plays to that record. They don't have that talent. I don't know how long they can sustain this, but it's fun while it's going on.
Yeah, enjoy it while it lasts. And aren't they playing the Oilers next?
Yes.
That's going to be a tough one right there.
Yeah, the Tampa Bay first round pick is top 10 protected.
Okay.
So right now the pick would be top 10. So that would be hilarious if the Blackhawks were to be able to win the number one overall pick and get Connor Bedard from the Tampa Bay Lightning's first round pick.
Oh, that would feel so good.
That would be the most delicious thing I've ever tasted.
Make that in the crock pot.
Yes, I was about to say that. Is how long do you have to simmer that in the Marty Havlack crock pot? But I mean, I'm along for this ride. I was so sure that this would be the most unwatchable garbage that we've ever seen, and it's not by any stretch. It makes last year look like you're like, wow, last year was the unwatchable garbage.
Yeah, that was bad.
But there's two quick baseball things I want to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
One is I've seen a lot of Cubs fans mention the possibility of signing Aaron Judge in free agency. And I'm just here to tell you that's absolutely not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm not counting on it. I mean, I look at things like trading for Shohei Ohtani, signing Aaron Judge. Those are two things where I'm like, hell yeah, I'd like that, but I just don't want to entertain the idea because I don't see it happening. I just don't think it's going to.
I would say you're 95% going to see Aaron Judge playing in San Francisco. But I so don't look for that. I still think the Cubs will make a splash. I think trading for Ohtani doesn't make sense based on where you are.
I mean, the Cubs are definitely going to spend money. I don't think there's any question.
I would be shocked if they're not all in on that Asian pitcher that's coming to the majors next year.
Yes.
There's no posting fee. There's no draft compensation tied to him, linked to him. Is just throwing straight cash, and I'd be shocked if they're not all in on him.
And the rumors are that it would be a pretty affordable contract too. The AAV would look pretty nice. So yeah, if it's a good bargain, then
aren't they estimating somewhere along the lines of 20 million-ish?
Yeah, for that's pretty solid value these days for a starting pitcher.
Yeah. So you're not getting Aaron Judge. As much as that would be cool to have a guy that's hitting 60 home runs in Wrigley Field again, it's just not going to happen. Temper your expectations. I mean, not temper them. You're probably still going to see some cool stuff. You're just not going to see Aaron Judge. And that's probably not the worst thing in the world, because that contract he's probably going to want like a 7-year contract, and he's like, 32 years old? Do you want to be paying that guy $50 million a year when he's almost 40?
I don't think that Jed Hoyer wants to do that.
I don't think so either. So I don't think he wants what the Cubs are selling, and I don't think the Cubs want to pay him what he wants.
And so, I want to bring this up too while we're on the Yankees. There's another Yankee player that it looks like he's going to be opting out. That's Anthony Rizzo. And I said on Twitter the other day, I think the chances of reunion with Rizzo and Cubs are unlikely. I think if you were to ask me right now what my best guess is, I think that the Yankees bring Rizzo back on, restructured terms. And I think that it's going to be a situation where he's going to get a bit more money next year than he was originally going to. That's why he had the player option this year. I think that the Cubs have moved on, and I think Anthony Rizzo has moved on.
Yeah, and I don't think there's bad blood per se. I just think it's just, you know what?
The ship has sailed.
The ship has sailed. And you're right. I think he does opt out of the Yankees contract, but he's just going to sign a new one there. I think it's one of those where they look at him and they're like, could they get a prettier girl? Or they probably want a prettier girl, but is a prettier girl available? They're like, well, this girl's pretty enough for now. And
yeah.
And I think
he fits in well with the team.
I mean, his average was pretty abysmal this year, but the other metrics were fine. He's still a good defensive first baseman, and he's a great guy in the locker room. It wasn't a record-breaking contract by any stretch. They're just going to re-up it. I don't even think it's probably even more money. It's just going to tack a couple of years onto it.
Yeah, exactly. And, would I personally say no to a Rizzo reunion? No. I mean, he's a left-handed power bat. I think that's welcome, but I think that there are other ways you could go forward with this. And I think that's what the Cubs plan to do. Am I saying that it's a foregone conclusion that it's absolutely zero impossible that the Cubs and the Anthony Rizzo reunites? No, I just think it's really, really unlikely.
Oh, absolutely. That's, there's never say never. But I think they're going to go in another direction. I really do. I think where there's smoke, there's fire with the Jose Abreu rumors.
I think so too.
I think that probably makes, as much as it would be nice to have that left-handed power bat at first base with Rizzo. I think the strikeouts low average probably make it a little tougher. You're going to lose a little power with Jose Abreu, but I think his contact is going to be way more welcome at first base. So I think that's a better choice right now. Even though the Cubs do need to find some power in that lineup.
Yeah, they do. They're going to have to add multiple power guys. And, you look at what you have and you're like, all right, well, you hope Seiya Suzuki can play a full healthy season next year. He's absolutely capable of hitting the 20 plus home run mark. Ian Happ, we've seen him being able to hit 20 plus home runs. Who knows if you'll have Wilson Contreras next year? Is Matt Mervis going to be part of the equation? Is Brennan Davis going to be part of the equation someday? And then who are you going to bring in? Are you going to bring in Carlos Correa? Are you going to bring in a Trey Turner? Those guys can hit 20 plus home runs. Power is going to really need to be worked on next year. They have guys that can make some contact and put the ball in play. You have Nico Horner to do that, but he's not going to provide you the power. You need that balance.
Yeah. And if you do end up bringing in Abreu, he's not that 25, 35 home run guy that he was several years ago. He's a 15 to 20 home run guy at this point, and he might even take a little dip there. But I think, do you need to add all of those home runs by one guy? No, but I think you need to add multiple positions with guys with a little pop in there. And Jose Abreu is not a bopper, but he's got a little pop.
Yeah.
So you're probably going to add a shortstop that's got a good amount of pop. I still think Patrick Wisdom's probably going to be your third baseman. He's got a good amount of pop. And you need to add, you had no pop at first base for most of the season.
No, you didn't.
So even if you add Abreu with his diminished pop, it's still a plus. And I think if having the combination of your infield, you're going to have more home runs overall in your infield if you do bring in Abreu and a superstar shortstop. It's going to be, can you add another piece to that outfield that's going to get you some home runs?
Yeah, exactly. And do they go after a guy like Cody Bellinger? If Cody Bellinger gets non-tendered, is that a guy you bring in as a reclamation almost? It's intriguing.
I've heard that multiple times. I wouldn't hate it if they did that.
I feel like it'd be low risk. You're not bringing him in on a multi-year deal in that scenario.
He's a guy that can play outfield or first base, which would be nice. He's only 27, 28.
Remember how good he was when he came up?
Oh, absolutely.
It was insane.
So he's not that, that old. So it's wild to see the the drop off in production.
It really is. I know he's had some injuries, so.
So I'm not. I think that would be a nice pickup in a change of pace, a change of scenery type situation, reclamation, if you will.
Yeah, for sure.
But on the other side of town, we joked that there's no way that the White Sox would hire Ozzie Guillen as their manager. And now we're starting to hear reports that Ozzie Guillen is the top choice of Jerry Reinsdorf.
I'm not surprised. I mean, here's the thing. I don't think Rick Hahn, like the Tony La Russa situation, wants to hire Ozzie Guillen. I'm sure he's looking at a Joe Espada or the one bench coach from the Royals. I think Joe Espada would be the right choice here. But
I am hearing, what I'm hearing is that Rick Hahn's first choice is Espada, and Jerry Reinsdorf's top choice is Ozzie Guillen.
And here's the thing. Who gets the final say?
And we saw what happened last time. And does Rick Hahn get, bullied by his boss into making the wrong decision again, or overruled in this decision again? I don't know. I hope not. I think Ozzie Guillen's a good manager? Not particularly. I think he was a lightning in the bottle manager.
I think he knows baseball. I think he knows the technical aspects of being a manager. I don't want to say I don't think he's a good manager. I just don't think he'd be the right guy in this situation right now.
All right. So the two roads you could go on with a manager are somebody like a Bruce Bochy, where he is just an elite level of understanding baseball and motivating guys and putting it all together. And then there's a guy like a David Ross who is this is going to sound worse than it is, almost a pseudo puppet for the front office. And it's unfair to say that to David Ross, because there are things he has to do in the game, but he is not going to buck what the front office wants to do.
He's not going to be like Art House starting Carlos Pena and having Billy Beane throw the chair through the window.
Yes, it is. He is going to toe the company line, and game in and game out, he's going to do his thing, but he's going to toe the company line while he's doing it. And those are the two directions that really you go in now. And Ozzie Guillen is never going to be the toe the line guy.
No, Ozzie's going to do what Ozzie wants.
But is he? I think, and I'm not saying he doesn't know baseball, and I'm not saying he's not a good motivator. I am just saying his very unorthodox way of doing it,
right,
is he's got to be in the right situation to be successful. And he was at one point in the perfect spot for him, lightning in a bottle. I don't think this would be a very good hire because he's been away from baseball, and it's just not the right fit for this organization. I don't think.
I don't think so either. I'm like, he knows what's going on, but it's how you handle it. It's one thing to analyze from the booth and analyze it in the post-game studio, wherever, than it is in the dugout. And what I could see happening with a potential Ozzie hire is maybe off the bat, he is kind of that authoritarian that people like Liam Hendricks are looking for, and it kind of gives them a little spark. But then things would kind of, the shtick would get old, it would kind of wear off, and then I just don't know if it'd be long lasting. But I think you got to go with a younger guy, analytically driven, good for the modern game.
Is Joe Madden's shtick kind of wore off because people were like, all right, how many balloon animals can we make? How many petting farms can we have on Wrigley Field? Like, you're just like, okay, we're not kids here. But with Ozzie Guillen, like, he's going to get in your face. He's going to get, and not everybody responds to that in the same way. Like, that just like, I don't respond well if like people yell.
Right. I don't either.
Like, when I mess up, like I am, take ownership of it, and I beat myself up about it. But when somebody yells at me, I just shut down. Like this. There's players like that. Ozzie Guillen his toolbox doesn't have a wide array of tools to use. He's mostly a hammer guy. And so whenever your best tool is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
Right. Exactly. We'll see what happens, though.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And I'm fairly positive it's going to be either Ozzie Guillen or Espada as the managers, whoever gets their way.
Yeah, I think there's one other guy in the mix, and that I think it's the Phillies hitting coach. I heard. So we'll see.
Yeah. But that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends. It's how we grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, or ShyFanPat2 for Alex on Twitter, or AlexanderJPatCreative.com for all the cool stuff that Alex does. So thank you guys so much for listening, and until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like Denver New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears.
Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.